Hi, I'm Patricia Grabarek.
And I'm Katina Sawyer, and welcome to the Worker Being Podcast.
So Katina's got an article for us today. Very excited to hear what it's about. Want to give us a sneak preview?
Yes. So this article is about the role that worrying the night before work has on your feelings of exhaustion the next morning, as well as the role of planning on your feelings of being energetic going into the next morning. So it's sort of this like bad worry, good planning. How does it end? We don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
I kind of feel like it's Monday right now, so
yeah.
when you said worrying, I was thinking like Sunday scaries, like
it is kind
Sunday
of like
nights. You think about it too much?
They do talk about that in the article because it's relevant. Any night before you go into work, you can have work worry in the way that they're talking about. So Sunday counts.
Interesting. Sunday counts. And
does.
I feel like just based on social media, so this is not a scientific poll, but people seem to be very upset about work on Sunday nights.
Yeah, I think it's a real thing. I mean, I think that everybody's just like, boo. And also, you know, if you don't have enough time to like properly recover over the course of the weekend, then you can be like, but no, I'm not done yet. I'm not ready. No.
Yeah. I definitely think it's an I'm not ready feeling more than anything else.
Yeah, like you're not feeling like, oh, that weekend was so refreshing to me and now I'm like ready to like pop into my work week with like all this energy. You're just like, I need more time off. I need to recover more.
Yeah.
That's what
Very
I think.
true. Well, how was your weekend then?
It was good. I had all my friends from, well, not all, but a handful of my friends from college come to visit for the Villanova-Georgetown basketball game that was in D.C. So, my roommate from college came down and my other friend who actually lives in D.C., but I don't see as much as I wish I did because both of us are very busy. But they came and stayed over Friday night, and then Saturday we went to her apartment. She has this like new apartment. I've been to her old house, but I hadn't been to her new apartment yet. And her apartment is like in this like beautiful new building down by like the wharf area in DC.
Nice.
So yeah, so we went there for brunch and she like showed us her like beautiful like roof deck. I don't know. It was like this like ridiculous building. It was awesome. And then we went to the game and then we hung out, got some dinner, and then just came back to the house and hung out on Saturday. And then we got some brunch down by the water in Alexandria. And then my friends headed out. And then I just like crashed for a while. And then ended up doing some work later. But took some time to take a nap and such.
Naps are good. Naps are good.
Yes. Everyone these days, it feels, gets up earlier than me. Like on the weekend, like I don't get up that early. And I think that I should do it, but I just don't really. And so like, but a lot of times, like it happens every time Brennan and I have people stay with us, like they're always up before we are. Like everybody's always like, but it doesn't matter like how late we stay up, they still get up earlier than me. And I'm like, well, why am I the one that like needs the greater sleep? We don't know, but I am.
I think it's because, generally speaking, and knowing you are more of a night person. And so I think you sleep in more. Even though during the week you wake up relatively early, I think you still wake up later during the week than most people.
That's true. Yeah, because I don't have to be in a place like consistently at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever. So I can have a little more control over what my schedule looks like.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that everybody else just is on a schedule that they wake up at a certain time and it's an earlier time. So even if you go to bed late, you just kind of, your natural clock just wakes you up anyways. Yeah. And you have a slightly later clock, than most people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think that's probably right. But I was just like, so like I woke up and I was just like, I feel like it's early. And then when I was by myself, I was just like, sleep. So I went back to sleep for a little bit. But what did you do?
We went to San Diego. We saw my sister and her boyfriend and her puppy and my uncle. So yeah, we had a good time just visiting and hanging out. And then Danny had a lacrosse game on Sunday down there. So We had family time and going out time, and then we had lacrosse time. So
that's fun.
It was fun. It was quick. It felt really quick. But going back to the sleep thing, one good thing is that my sister, even though she's younger, is kind of an old lady and likes to go to bed early. So I still got sufficient amount of sleep.
That's good. Is San Diego like really hot right now? What's happening there?
What do you mean? Is it hot? Like temperature wise?
Yeah.
No, it's not that different than where I am. It's
Okay.
only 3 hours south. It's maybe a little bit warmer, but not dramatically. We just went
Gotcha.
down there because Danny had that game, and we decided we were gonna spend a couple extra hours, or like really an extra day, just hanging out. Since I haven't seen my sister since Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yep.
Well, that
so
is lovely.
that was fun.
I'm glad that you got to go to San Diego. I love San Diego. I mean, I love LA, but San Diego is like also a very nice place. It's like a good.
It is.
It's a good town.
Yeah, San Diego's quieter, so it's nice, it's quieter, it's a little bit easier to get around. So
yeah,
it's definitely like it's a perfect vacation place. Like,
yeah,
if somebody was to say, should I visit LA or visit San Diego, and I'm not willing to drive, I would say go to San Diego, because LA is so big and can be overwhelming, and I love LA, and I think everyone should come and learn how to love it, but it's not like a relaxing city.
Come and learn how to love it is like the worst slogan you could come up with. Like, it's such a beautiful place, and I love LA, but come and learn how to love it is definitely not LA's vacation slogan.
Well, there's just so much to do, and everything can be, I mean, things are spread out. It's a lot. It's a city that I think isn't easy to navigate for somebody that's never been.
True. That's true.
I don't think that, it depends on how good you are at navigating new cities too. Like somebody that's like really not used to that, or wants a calmer vacation, then San Diego is a better bet, because you've got, I mean, both cities have great beaches, but in San Diego, it's just a much quieter vibe. It's a calmer vibe. You don't feel like, oh, I have to go do the Hollywood sign, then go to the Griffith Observatory, then go to Santa Monica, then go to this, then go to that. And there's like so many things.
That's true.
So I think that San Diego is just a little bit of a calmer, like, I'm going to go and escape a little bit vacation versus a city vacation.
That makes sense. And even though there's bad traffic in LA, it doesn't bother us, because we get in Ubers and drive for 2 hours and talk to each other the whole time and think it was 30 minutes, and then realize that the driver has listened to us talk for 2 hours, and we're like, oops.
They're like, I hate you guys. Just shut up for 1 second, please.
we really did not have any sense of time in that car.
No.
We're
pretty good at that, just generally when we're together, just talking and like getting on random tangents, like we kind of are right now.
So fine. That's true, actually. How long have we been recording for?
Yeah, right.
It's been 2 hours.
Sorry, everyone.
Now you know what the Uber driver felt like. Not good. Yes. Okay. On that note, perhaps we shall transition to article.
Yes. Tell me all the things. Name, the article, who wrote it, all the good things.
Yes, I will do that. So the article is called Feeling Exhausted or Vigorous in Anticipation of High Workload, The Role of Worry and Planning During the Evening. And it's by Casper and Sonnentag, and it was published in the Journal of Occupational and Organizational Psychology in 2020. So it just came out in this past issue.
Ooh, nice.
Yes.
Fresh. So sounds super interesting. Tell me the things. What are the things that we should know about this article?
So I feel like we haven't really talked about worrying that much, which is what brought me to it. And I feel like I've been kind of like struggling with worrying lately. So I feel I've been drawn to worry because I keep like waking up in the night and being like worried about random things.
Oh no.
It's not like tearing my life apart, but like I woke up last night. I was only awake for like 20 minutes, but like I woke up last night and I was just like, and like I was feeling like stressed about whatever random house stuff. I had like a work thing that ended up fine. But whatever. So I feel like when I saw worry today, I was like, ooh, worry. So, basically what I'm going to tell you though is bad. So, what's happening to me is not good. So, the idea is that, there are different ways that you can cope when you get home from work with the anticipation that you're going to have a lot to do the next day. So a lot of us have an anticipated high workload. When they go home, you know the next day you're going to have a bunch of stuff to do. And there's sort of like a negative coping strategy or a less adaptive coping strategy, which is just to kind of like sit and worry about it. And then there's a potentially more positive coping strategy, which is to try to plan for your next day.
Okay.
So this article kind of set out to examine whether those two things actually have the relationships that people thought that they would, with feeling more exhausted in the morning. So if you worry and you have a high workload that you're anticipating, are you more exhausted the next day? And if you are having an anticipated high workload and you are deciding to plan for it, they're thinking that you should have more energy or be ready to like jump into your workday the next day because you've like tried to proactively deal with the problem. So that's what they were interested in.
Okay. I mean, I think that makes sense from a theoretical perspective as to what they're saying. So worrying, I've got a lot to do tomorrow and I'm worrying about it, or I've got a lot to do tomorrow and I'm starting to plan for it. So it's all about like thinking about all the things you have to do. Like I'm a person, for example, that will always look at my calendar the night before next day. Not from a worrying perspective usually. Most of the time it's just okay, let me look at the calendar. When am I going to be able to take some breaks? What's going on? Like just getting a sense for my day. And that's something that I always do, and I feel weird if I don't do it. Like I don't feel, it actually makes me worry more if I don't do it. If I look at my calendar and just know what's coming, I don't think about it anymore.
Me too. I'm the same. I like to know what I'm doing, but I do feel that I will plan for my next day. Like I'll go on my calendar and try to figure out like, okay, what do I want to get done? Where do I have some free time to like fit in some extra stuff that maybe I wanted to get done but wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get done. So I think that but then I also feel like if I have a lot going on, I might also like worry about whether or not I'm actually going to get done everything I need to get done. So I kind of feel like I do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I do both. When like the worry only sets in when I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it all. So it sounds like same to you. Like I feel like if I don't know if everything on my, like I look at my calendar and I've got meetings back to back all day and I know I'm not going to be able to eat lunch until like 3 p.m., which is absurd. And there's no time in between those meetings to like actually get any tasks done. Those are the nights that I'm like, ugh, I'm kind of worrying.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
If I have a more normal schedule, then I don't feel so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And the items that they asked people were things like, I worried about possible problems that I might have at work tomorrow. So it's, and there were some about like past events, that were in the original, scale, but this one only captured future. So it's not, we've talked about rumination before. It's not like I'm worried because today this bad thing happened to me and I keep replaying it and I'm like just worried that a bad thing happened. This is specifically about like I'm worried about what's going to happen tomorrow when I get to work.
So it's very future focused. I'm thinking about tomorrow, not about today, not about yesterday, not about last week, but I'm thinking about tomorrow specifically.
Yes, exactly. That is correct. So they studied this in a way that we have talked about a million times, which is in a daily diary survey where you take multiple surveys over the course of a day, and then they're able to take a look at the timing of it. So if you experience this first, does this happen next? And does that happen after that? And you take those same surveys every day for 2 weeks, and then they're able to look at across all those days, do these things actually have a similar relationship to each other? So it's a very strong methodology, and basically what they did was they gave an afternoon survey at the end of the workday, a bedtime survey in the evening before going to bed, and a next morning survey in the morning before going to work. And so they were asking people to sort of rate these things across the course of the day, so that the next morning, in the afternoon, they're asking them about, okay, tomorrow, how much do you think you're going to have to do? And then in the bedtime survey, they're saying, how much worry and planning are you doing? And then the next morning they're asking them how exhausted they're feeling and how vigorous they're feeling before they go into work. So they're looking at the relationship between how much do you think you're going to have to do tomorrow? And then, you know, how much am I right now before bed worried? How much have I planned? And then the next morning, how tired am I? So the questions for like exhaustion were things like, I already feel so tired before I even go to work. And the vigor questions are like, I'm going to work bursting with energy.
Is that anybody?
I don't know. Apparently it is. I'm going to work feeling strong and like I'm looking forward to my work. Like those kinds of questions, as opposed to like, I'm already feeling exhausted. I didn't even get there yet.
Okay, well, I could see I'm looking forward to my work or something like that. I cannot imagine bursting with energy. Maybe that's just me in the mornings in general. That does not generally happen. I'm not like waking up and I'm like, wow, this is the best. But I guess there are some people out there like that. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean,
I just don't know many of them.
I haven't looked at the means carefully, but we could check and see like, I wonder how many people actually experience this compared to the dread. Mean level of dread versus mean level of happiness. Oh, wait, I can tell you. The mean level of worry was 1.86 out of 5. Mean level of planning was 2.3. So more people plan than worry, which is interesting. And for exhaustion, 2.59 versus vigor, 2.97.
Whoa. So more people are feeling vigorous?
Well, that's encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah. What does that say about me?
I don't know. We're like, God.
Well, but here's the thing. Like, I actually love my job. Yeah. And I love everything with worker being. So I really do enjoy all that. But I just do not like getting out of bed.
Yeah, I think that's me too. It's like, it's just like, it's not the like actual action of doing the work over the course of a day so much. It's like, yeah, just like I don't wake up and I'm like, I'm ready to go. Like a little like Tigger or something. Like, I don't know. Okay. Well, looks like we're a little off. We got to do something about that.
Well, maybe this is like such a tangent, but maybe they were asking it like after they've woken up and had like their cup of coffee or something. Like, if you were to ask me like, I've gotten up, I've had breakfast or something, then I would feel very differently than if I wake up and like I fill out this survey as I'm getting ready or something, then I would be not so happy with you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm trying to it's not easily accessible to my eyes right now what the exact times were, but I don't see. A lot of times they'll say like, we opened the survey at this time to this time, and then they couldn't complete it after that. This just seems to say more vague, like afternoon, bedtime and morning. So I don't know. Oh no, wait. Participants received the afternoon survey at 3 p.m., the bedtime survey at 9 p.m., and the next morning survey at 6 a.m. See, that's even worse. 6 a.m.
That's so early.
And they're still feeling vigorous.
Well, those people are better than me.
Wow, this is just really fascinating.
So, anyways, we've learned something about ourselves along this journey of this article.
Oh, but they had until 11 a.m. to fill it out. Hold on. That's some variability there, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, if you asked me at 10 a.m., I would feel very differently than if you asked me at 6 a.m.
So much more vigorous.
Yeah. But at the same time, I could see that if I was really stressed out and worrying the night before, that by 10 a.m. I might be really over it and wanting to go to bed too. So
right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that's interesting. Usually the time frames are a little tighter. So that's something kind of whatever about that study that maybe they could have done a little bit better, is like you don't want that much variability in when people are. That's a big window, 5 hours.
Yeah, but maybe like I also think about when do people start work. Like some people I know start work at 8, some people work at 9, some people work at 10.
Yeah.
So maybe there was some guidance like you should do it before you start to work. And then that's why the window is so big, just depending on your schedule. All right, we're getting way too into the weeds of this. So whatever. But what did they find? How about that?
Yes. Okay. So interestingly enough, so the worry part of it, I think, is pretty straightforward. So basically, if you anticipate a high workload, if you're more worried, you're more likely to be exhausted. That's just true. But the combination of anticipating high workload and work-related worry make your exhaustion exacerbated. So when you have a lot to do and you spend time worrying about it in the evening, you are more exhausted in the morning, which is not super insane, but it does mean that worry is an issue that we need to pay more attention to. And something interesting is that they also controlled for psychological detachment, which is something we've talked about before, which is basically like recovery, like detaching from work. And so it's aside from recovery, there's nothing related to like the extent to which you're like doing work related stuff or not. It's just solely like, are you thinking about work? So it's not even like I'm worried and I'm engaging in other work related activities to try to like counterbalance, or I'm trying to get work done in the evening. Regardless of whether you're disconnected or not, if your mind is on work, it creates more exhaustion in the morning.
Yeah, and if your mind's not just on work, it's worrying about work. So whether you're working, whether you're watching, Real Housewives, whether you're at the gym, if you're worrying about work is what's going to lead to that exhaustion, not the actual act of working at night.
Right. Yeah. Yep, exactly. The interesting thing is that planning doesn't have an impact on feeling more vigorous the next day. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because as a person who feels like planning helps me, I was curious to learn that the amount of planning that you engage in when you have a high workload actually doesn't have an impact on how much energy you have the next day.
So I have a theory.
Yes.
I actually wouldn't have, I thought okay, it kind of makes sense that planning would lead to being more vigorous in the next day. But initially when I was thinking about worrying and planning, I hadn't thought that, because I was like, well, planning doesn't necessarily make me more vigorous tomorrow. It just makes me less worried the night before. So I wonder, did they do anything to see like how worried versus how planned you are, if that had an impact, like the two things together? Like if you're worrying and then you plan, does that help you feel less exhausted?
So what they basically looked at was like these two separate paths in their main model, which was like, they looked at the effect of planning on vigor and the effect of, worrying on exhaustion. So they were kind of like two separate models in a sense. So I know that they, did some additional analyses around worrying, and, what they basically did was they found that planning was helpful for people, but only when they got a full night of sleep the night before. So they sort of say that planning may be another form of not disconnecting. And so what they think is like, while you feel like you're like proactively approaching the problem and making progress, it's still that you're like doing work related things.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that, it's still disrupting your night, even though it feels productive. And so it only helps you if you both plan and you replenish those resources from the fact that you like stayed connected to your work.
That makes sense. I think that's fair. I think that makes a lot of sense, because I mean, how many studies have we talked about where it's all about, you need to detach, you shouldn't be doing work a couple hours before you go to sleep, like all of those things. Like we have so many articles that we've read and talked about on the podcast and written about on the website, that the whole idea of fully detaching and recovering the night before is really helpful and beneficial. And now if you add in planning, while you might be calming some of the worry, it's still not that detachment. So you're still not. So like in the ideal world, you're not worrying about it and you're not planning for it either. You're just kind of like doing your thing at night, and then you wake up and then you're like, woohoo, work time, because now you've had enough space from it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So that's kind of so planning wasn't effective on its own, but in combination with good sleep, it does seem to do something positive. The other thing is that worry and planning do correlate positively. So the more you worry, the more you plan to some extent. So to your point before, there is something about worry and planning. But when they looked at whether it predicts anything, the two things combined in one didn't do anything different. It wasn't significant. So basically the worry part, even if you're disconnected from your work, but your mind is there, it exhausts you. And if you're planning, it feels like maybe it cancels out because you're doing something productive, but you're still invested in work unless you replenish your resources.
That makes sense. So basically the moral of the story is try not to plan unless you've got enough time to then disconnect fully still and get some sleep, take a break, do all that. So you want to make sure that if you're feeling really worried, maybe the planning might help you feel at ease, right? Like I know that's something for me personally. So it's okay to plan, but just make sure you're giving yourself enough sleep. If you don't have the time to plan before you go to bed, then go to bed. Just go to bed. Forget the planning. Just go to bed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I think that's fair because like my planning is very minimal. I'm just like keep going back to myself, but my planning is very minimal. Like my planning is literally just looking at the calendar, seeing if there's any other things I want to fit in somewhere and making sure I make that time, like block it or something in the calendar. But that's pretty much it. So it doesn't really impact my sleep. It doesn't really impact my overall disconnecting and detachment from work. I try to keep it relatively minimal. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think if you were spending a lot more time planning, it would be really bad.
Yeah, I think so too. And the way that they're, asking the questions, it's like, I think if you had spent a lot of time planning, you'd be higher on the scale. But probably if someone asked you those questions, I don't know that you put yourself at a 5. You might say like, oh yeah, I did a 1 of planning or 2 of planning. You know what I mean? Like I did some, but you weren't like spending your like night planning. It is interesting though, because every Sunday night I plan my week for the upcoming week, and it's like a standing reminder on my calendar to like plan it out. And I wonder if that like adds to, I mean, it doesn't do anything bad for you, but it doesn't seem like it's actually helping me.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
But maybe it's putting your mind at ease and reducing the worry that you would feel later that night.
That's true. That could be true.
So I think that there's probably a balance here, right? Like you should reduce your worry as much as you can. And if your worry gets reduced by planning a little bit, then do a little bit.
Yeah.
And get your sleep. But don't over plan. Don't get too into it that you're not detaching. But maybe, maybe if it helps you a little bit, reduce that worry. I think the goal here is just to reduce your worry as much as you can.
Right. Yeah. Reducing worry is definitely the thing that they would say is the biggest takeaway from the article, because that's the thing that had the significant impact on exhaustion. So planning doesn't have a negative impact. It's just not effective in terms of making you more energetic unless you have sleep. But there is an active negative impact on worrying when you have a lot to do. So what are some things to do about worrying? I would recommend we talk about on the podcast, and we have talked about before, things that we know are meant to reduce stress. So it may be good to spend a few minutes before bedtime trying to do some meditation, or just close your eyes and clear your mind, or listen to a mindfulness recording on your phone, or whatever the case may be. Like those little things can help to alleviate the stress, but also you might want to address the root, which would be, what is the source of my worry, and is there anything I can do to actually change that source? So I think like everyone's job is going to have something that they're going to worry about. Like I think that that's normal, but if you're constantly in a state of worry, you may need to make a bigger shift. Like maybe your job is not structured in a way that supports your well-being and you want to start looking for something else. Or maybe you need to have a talk with your manager about something, scheduling or tasks, or your colleagues or coworkers. Like trying to figure out what the root cause is also, I think, beneficial.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because if you've got a lot of work, you've got too much work, then that means the job is not well defined in some ways, right? They're giving you too many tasks. You have too many things on your plate, and you can see if there's something that you can cut out or become more efficient in, but then it might be something bigger, like we need to hire someone to help, or a coworker needs to lift a little heavier weight to balance out the workload, or whatever that looks like. I think there's a lot of things to think about there. And I think with the worry too, I think there's like some need to reframe, because at least for me, there's a lot of times where I'll be like, oh my God, I have so much to do. I'm not going to be able to get it done. And then I always am fine. Like I get it done. Right. Or if I don't get it done, it's not the end of the world and I do it the next day. Like it's not dramatic. So I think that if that's the case for you, if you're like me, then it's probably helpful to reframe and think about the times where you felt that way, but it actually ended up being okay, and just trying to remind yourself that it's worked out fine in the past. There's no reason to think that tomorrow is going to be any different than that. So trying to just kind of refresh your memory of the times that maybe you felt the same way before.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the article also talks about how leaders can do a lot better to empower people or make people feel empowered. Like if your boss or your manager is like, you have this, you can totally do this. Like, you're going to be great. Even if it's something that you can't avoid, like a big presentation or something that you're concerned about, whatever, you've got a huge project to work on, big deadline coming up. If your boss or your manager can empower you to feel better about it, it may decrease the extent to which you're feeling that worried or concerned after work, as opposed to like not having any support or feeling like you're like left in the dark on it. So they also like call out for leadership to be able to, make it more likely that people will feel like they're able to manage the workload. And then also that, if there's unnecessary stuff that is happening while you're managing your workload, that you're actually, attempting to get rid of things that people don't need to be doing as a manager, and that you're not just making people like do work for the sake of doing work or make things harder than it has to be, which we wish wasn't the case with any managers, but we all know that, some leaders are not good at that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think, you can empower your people, motivate them, make them feel like they've got this, you trust in them, you believe in them, it's going to be fine. And then also provide the support that if maybe they have this huge project and big deadline and you've got a little bit of extra time, so you can take on a couple of their tasks to help them out. Or maybe a coworker can, or maybe you can split it amongst the team because this one person has a lot going on that day. So I think it's really important as a leader or a manager to think about the workload of your full team and make sure that you're distributing it properly, so that you're not putting too much weight on somebody that maybe can't handle all of that.
Right.
And so just being really cognizant of that and letting people know that they can come to you and talk to you if they feel like their workload is too high or they've got a lot of things that they're worrying about, so that they can help you manage that, right? So your managers really need to be helping their teams manage that worry if it exists.
Totally. Yep, absolutely. So I think the goal is to make sure that people aren't going home so stressed out or freaked out about what they have to do the next day, that they feel a little bit better to tackle it. And that if you're a person who is in a stressful job, you may be able to do some structural things to change that, or you may just need to do some things to get yourself to mentally detach when you get home, to make sure that you're not just, spending all of your free time concerned about what's going to happen at work.
Yeah, I love this article. This makes me think about my own evenings and thoughts about work the next day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure that I'm not spending too much time planning, and make sure that I am figuring out how to deal with worry in those days that I am feeling worried.
Yeah. I think that's a good takeaway, and I would like to do the same, because I told you I've been having a little bit of a problem with worry, and I was like, sometimes you find stuff and you're just like, it was meant for me. So I'm happy that I found it, and now I can think about better ways of dealing with worry, which is good.
Good.
Yes.
Well, I hope everyone else feels the same way. So on that note, we'd love to hear from you, love to hear your stories about worry and planning. And obviously, if you want to reach out and talk about the retreat or coronavirus fears or anything at all, you can find us at workerbeing.com. You can email us at contact@workerbeing.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter at workerbeing as well. And we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks. The Worker Being podcast is hosted by us, Patricia Grabara
and Katina Sawyer, and produced by Allie Johnson.